Hello there, you beautiful, wonderful, magnificent human. I'm Andrea Dawn, and today we are here discussing more yoga asana, or the physical postures of the yoga practice. And it's important we understand the why behind what we're doing and why we're practicing it, so that we don't get lost in those egoic-based reasons that probably will come up as we practice, such as believing that a handstand or an arm balanced is a more advanced practice, when in reality, what equals advanced is the amount of attention and focus we're placing on what we're doing, regardless of what we may have perceived the difficulty of that shape is. So today we're looking at Anjaneyasana, or low lunge position. Each posture in the physical yoga practice has a Sanskrit name ending in asana, meaning seat or posture. And today we will explore Anjaneyasana, also known as low lunge, crescent low lunge, monkey lunge. When we break down the Sanskrit, we see Anjaneya, which is the original name for Lord Hanuman, or son of Anjani, of whom is Hanuman's mother, and then asana, which means seat. The history is a bit murky, and while there are multiple correlations to its mythological significance, the physical posture itself is not seen until the 20th century, borrowed from Indian martial arts. It is commonly practiced throughout asana practices, sometimes as part of a sun salutation, sometimes as a back bend, a heart opener for balance, flexibility, and strength. This brings us to the why behind Anjaneyasana. Now, each posture has its specific whys, and also each posture's why is ultimately the same. We at some point must move beyond the business of yoga as exercise and stretching, or a brand of commercialized spirituality. A consistent yoga practice is necessary to prepare the body, the breath, and the mind for meditation. And meditation is required for self or Atman realization, or we could also say to end our own suffering. And now that is according to Patanjali. Other yoga paths have different methods to reach self-realization. This clarity and commitment to why we are doing the physical practice helps us to avoid the inevitable ego-contrived obstacles that will arise. Like, as I said before, believing handstands or fancy arm balances or pretzel-like contortions will equal an advanced practitioner. This warped thinking leads to more suffering and most likely physical suffering or injury. Anjaneyasana promotes spinal extension, strengthening and stretching of the legs, the glutes, the groin, the core body, the hips, the ankles, the feet, the arms, the shoulders, and the chest. This posture also has the potential to improve balance, posture, relieve lower body soreness, and more, dependent upon specific variations and intentions that you may have. Anjaneyasana can have symbolic, metaphoric, and meaningful significance to our own personal lives. When we consider the Sanskrit translation of the posture, Anjaneya stands out, which translates to the Hindu monkey god, later renamed Hanuman. Hanuman's mother, Anjana or Anjani, I've read it both ways, before she has Hanuman, was struggling to conceive a child of which she wanted more than anything. She would come to the low lunge position on one knee with arms raised to the sky, asking and praying for a child. Impressed with her devout daily practices, the wind god, Vayu, heard her prayers and granted her a son. Anjaneya, later to be named Hanuman, was born to her. There are many versions of the origins of Hanuman from the Indian epic, the Ramayana. So what can we learn from Anjana and the low lunge pose of Anjaneyasana? Anjana's devotion can be noted as a cornerstone of the yoga practice, and that regardless of whether or not our prayers are answered, it is the daily remembering of, in her case, Shiva, of which could be translated in the Western world as God. Perhaps there is something to be said for the juxtaposition of the posture itself, with the knee grounding into the earth and the arms reaching towards the cosmos. We must be rooted in our Mother Earth, in our Dharma, our duties here, and yet not become robotic or numbed by the mundane, to remember daily our connection to the celestial realms and beyond. This posture requires the skill of balance. Where in your life can you add or subtract, reach higher or sink deeper, integrate more strength or ease? Our lives require unbiased observation and gentle recalibration on the regular. Making adjustments to things like our tone of voice, to ourselves and others, our tendency to be the judge and the jury, our habits of complaining, blaming, shaming, gossiping, and assuming are all parts of ourselves that need to be kept in check. Just like you can't expect to put oil in your car once and drive it forever, you can't practice yoga for 1 month and expect to make lasting change. We are forever refining our fine to fabulous. And what I like most about Anjaneyasana and that position and what it reminds me of is that grounding and at the same time expanding. The remembering that I do have duties here, I do have responsibilities here. And also not to forget my connection with God, with Spirit, whatever you want to say, with Hanuman. To keep that lightness about us. To remember that joy is our birthright. And that we get to experience both. So even in times of maybe what might feel like struggle, we can still experience joy and ease at the same time. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. Sometimes we feel feelings of guilt or shame because there are parts of the world and people in the world who are experiencing extreme suffering, while we might be having some type of joyous experience and then all of a sudden feel an overwhelming sense of guilt that we're experiencing this ability to feel happiness or that we are granted with so many amenities. And we must remember at those times that our suffering will not help relieve their suffering. What will help relieve their suffering is our ability to experience more ease and peace. If we believe that our energy is contagious, that our energy moves, then we have the ability to send that out into the world. And every person we experience will experience our state. And so rather be the one affected by their state, we can be the ones affecting. So that means it's our responsibility for the state of our being. Just like it's their responsibility for the state of theirs, regardless of what our circumstances are. We don't need to judge those. It's not helpful. What is helpful is to take responsibility for the state of our being. So all that being said, let's demo Anjaneyasana. We're going to start in a standing position to demo this. So we'll start in a mountain pose. And you can start with your feet about 2 fist width distance. That equals about hip width. So you can think about aligning your heels up with your butt bones. And then we're just going to take it into a forward fold. So however you want to make your way down to a forward fold. And then once you get down to that forward fold, step 1 foot back. In my case, I'm stepping the left foot back. My feet are still on their own separate tracks. You could think of them like train tracks, or like when I was in Colorado, they compared them to skis. And then you'll drop your left knee. My right knee is staying over my right ankle. Now right here already with my hands down, this could be a variation of the posture. You could also walk your hands a little bit closer in towards your body. You could bring them up onto blocks. But before we come up, let's find a scissoring action of the legs. So I'm going to start by drawing my right heel, my right knee, and my right hip back. My left toes, left knee, left hip forward, drawing them in towards one another. I've also heard it said that if we drew a diagonal between my right heel and left knee, it's like I was trying to shorten up that diagonal. So I'm drawing it in and then drawing my inner thighs together. Now, I want to stretch the top of my foot, so I'm going to untuck the toes. That's also up to you. So many different ways that we can experience the sensations of the posture. Could be with the toes tucked and untucked. Then from there, again, hands might come to block. They might start on the knee. And what I want us to start with is, rather than coming forward, like you might see the posture demoed a lot, let's just start with the hips over the left knee and creating a right angle. And then we'll experience that. You could put your hands on your knee and notice where you feel what you feel. Now, if we want to feel a little bit more different, more intense sensations, you could walk this foot forward and start to come forward a little bit more. I'm still keeping that scissoring action, so I'm not completely dumping into it, letting my ribs flare out and dumping into my low back. I'm keeping a strong scissoring action, so I'm staying really strong in my low back the whole time. And then from there, you can extend your arms. Now, when you extend your arms, reach your fingertips up, but at the same time, draw your armpits down and spiral your pinkies in. Okay, so this might be plenty of sensation. It requires flexibility, balance, stability, core engagement. If you want to add a little bit more of a back bend, here's where I would advise moving from the middle to upper back and finding a little bit more of a back bend shape. Okay? So we want to be just careful that we're not kind of dumping into the posture, but staying in a strength-based position in the lower part of our body. And then we're finding that grounding as well as a reaching and expansion of the upper body. The gaze can be straight forward or lifted. Okay, and then from here, you could find all different types of variations. You could find a twist, maybe with cactus arms, with extended arms. You could find a twist where you bring your left hand down to the inside of the right foot. You could find a twist where you're in prayered hands and hooking the elbow, bringing the thumbs to the sternum. You could add more of a quad stretch in the back leg where you would bend the back knee. You could take one hand to the foot. You could take both hands to the foot, right? And then from there, again, it might be that you're adding a little bit more of a back bend. Many, many different variations that you can take. And then if you want to do the other side, you would just step up and step back with your other foot. Okay, that is not the only way to practice the posture, but again, when we're clear about why we're practicing it. So if I'm practicing it for strengthen my legs, I don't necessarily need to go into that big back bend, but if the purpose of the reason I'm practicing it is for a chest and heart opener and a back bend, I still need to find that stability of my legs, but now I might adjust my upper body differently. So we want to go into it knowing why we're doing it. I hope this was helpful in understanding Anjaneyasana and maybe giving you a little inspiration with the Ramayana and Hanuman and practicing daily. So if we think of Hanuman's mother and her daily coming to this position to connect to something greater than. So how do you do that in your daily life? And it might be through your asana practice. It's always a blessing, honor, and privilege my heart sees and feels and smiles to yours.